the inside story on the issues that affect you and your community. This is Local 12 Newsmakers.
Good morning and welcome to Local 12 Newsmakers. I'm Dan Hurley. We continue this morning with interviews of the candidates for Cincinnati City Council. This year, 23 people are officially in the race. 22 names will appear on the ballot, plus one official write-in candidate. It means the votes get counted. The Democrats have endorsed 9 candidates, 4 of whom are already on council. The Republicans have a short slate with only 4 endorsed candidates, 3 of whom are incumbents. The Charterites have endorsed 4 candidates, including 2 cross-endorsed with the Democratic slate. 6 independents are running, including a former council member, Christopher Smitherman, and former Hamilton County Prosecutor Mike Allen, who are for sure in the mix. We begin this morning with 2 candidates. Catherine Smith Mills is a native of Cincinnati and currently works in a family business, the Mills Fence Company. She has worked in the offices of 2 members of Congress, Rob Portman and Gene Schmidt, and as a policy analyst for the Cincinnati USA Regional Chamber. She is a first-time candidate endorsed by the Republican Party. Yvette Simpson is also a Cincinnati native, an attorney who currently directs the pre-law program at Miami University. She is a first-time candidate and, along with Roxanne Qualls, is endorsed both by the Democratic Party and the Cincinnati Charter Committee. And welcome to both of you.
Thanks so much.
First-time candidates are always, this is an experience. You may be around politics.
You're right.
And I do want to clarify that even though I work at the chamber, you and I missed each other by about 2 weeks. You left and then I came.
Yes.
So we are not co-workers at
right.
this particular point. So, or ever, for that matter. Let me begin with this question. Catherine, on your website, and both of you focus on the question of jobs. Mm-hmm. What is the role of city government in promoting jobs and economic development?
Yeah, well, the role of city government really is not supposed to be that extensive. The best thing city government can do for the most part is to stay out of the way, I think, of small businesses and development in the region. However, the things that they can do is really set a good positive climate for business, and they can do this by creating really strong policy for small businesses. And we have a Mills Means Jobs plan. I think job creation is very important here at the city level, and that looks at a lot of different things. It looks at access to work, it looks at small business development. It also looks at future growth. And the items that the city can do for small business look at how do we make the small business enterprise network better, what you have to do to be a contractor in the city. How can we make that easier? How can we get more Cincinnati youth to work? How can we help our folks who have been incarcerated, who have gone through re-entry programs? How can we get people like that jobs? And there are ways that we can do this, and I outlined them in our Mills Means Jobs plan, and that's what the city can do. They can help implement kind of common sense policies.
Yvette, what do you think the role of city government is in job promotion?
I certainly want to echo what Catherine said, in that creating a climate that is business friendly is really important for creating jobs, particularly in the small business market, but in our big businesses as well. I mean, I think above and beyond that, though, the city has resources that we can make available to small businesses that we should make available if it will help facilitate job growth. Some of those include blighted properties that the city can make available at a low cost to small businesses that want to have a storefront experience so that they can draw in more customers. Above and beyond that, we could look at creating some sort of venture capital fund that could help small businesses get off their feet or to get through times of difficulty like we have right now. And so above and beyond that, I think there are certainly resources that we can make available. I think at the foundation, though, you have to have a great climate, and part of that is how we relate to one another and how we relate to the business community.
You know, in that whole area, one of the things that has happened this past week is the announcement about Omnicare moving from Covington to Cincinnati, a lot of various tax breaks, incentives that have been offered, mostly by the state, but also by the city. Nielsen Company is also being wooed to move across the river. Yvette, let's start with you. What do you think about this idea of Cincinnati going after Northern Kentucky businesses and the city providing that, and what do you think the implications for regional cooperation is if we're going to take that kind of approach?
You know, I certainly believe it's a double-edged sword. I think when we start to believe that Northern Kentucky or Mason or Westchester are competition, then it damages the region when we know that our real competition is much further out, like St. Louis or Nashville. And so I think it's problematic. I don't think it's surprising in this climate, though, that we're trying to get as many jobs as we can, and so if we can do that, we certainly should. And I think it's just a reverse of what we saw many years ago when Northern Kentucky was in a boom, and we were seeing a lot of jobs going the other side. So, you know, I believe it's temporary. I hope it's temporary. And certainly in Cincinnati, as a representative of Cincinnati, hopefully here soon, we want to get as many jobs as we can. But I think it really does, as you were alluding to, it does damage the region because really we shouldn't be competing with one another. We should be attracting jobs from further out.
Catherine, what do you think about this?
You know, I worked with the Cincinnati Chamber, and you know, we always work together with Northern Kentucky because we're very close. And benefits that happen in Northern Kentucky, like Toyota moving in a few years ago, that directly helps Cincinnati and vice versa. And I will say with Omnicare used to be in Cincinnati up until we started looking at different tax things that the city did that they didn't like, and they left. So I think we're in a great position. I think it's wonderful that Omnicare is coming back because at the end of the day, you know, the most of their tax revenue is going to go to the city that they're in, and we need that revenue. We've got to be strategic about that. We have to be competitive about that, and we've got to give more companies reasons to stay. We have a $33 million deficit, another deficit again this year. This is going to directly increase revenue for the city of Cincinnati to help pay that off. Our biggest stream of revenue really comes from a lot of the different taxes, whether it be from the corporations or whether it be income tax.
On this question of revenue, and let's start broader than that. Let's start with budget. There is this huge gap, 33 million, whatever it happens to turn out to be when we get to December 1st. But a significant gap. The manager has consistently made certain proposals about what to do. Cutting some police, possibly some fire, imposing a garbage collection fee, allowing the inside millage to rise rather than constantly keeping it down. And even lower than, because of the reduction in property values, it means we're going to be collecting a lot less. What do you think concretely the city ought to do on the budget side to create a balanced budget and still deliver the services that we need?
Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing is, I mean, in the Inquirer this morning, we talked about, or the Inquirer talked about, how this region is lagging behind, whether it be household income, far more than any other place in the nation. Because of that, it's definitely not the time to raise property tax or individual income tax on the backs of the Cincinnati taxpayer. So I do oppose raising taxes to get there. But we can do a lot of things.
What about the garbage fee?
You know, the garbage fee is something that I've talked to a lot of people. Some people are very adamant against it. They feel like it's double taxation. Some other people, they don't mind so much. So I think that's something that really would need to come down to a citizen vote. Personally, it's
it's on the ballot.
That's true. That's true.
So are you for or against that position, charter amendment on the ballot?
Yeah, I think right now it would be not a good time to charge for a trash fee.
So you support preventing the city from in the charter?
I support it right now. I think that whenever you look at the charter and doing things different in the charter, I think you get into kind of a muddy water. But I will say that I wouldn't, if it was up to me, put a trash fee presently. But you know, down the road, if people wanted to vote on that as an up or down issue, not just having it be, I think in the charter amendment it talks about having it for the rest of time, never allowing to have a trash fee idea brought up. So I think it should be allowed to be brought up, but if the voters don't want it.
So you are against the what's on the ballot, but you don't want to raise garbage? Is that what I'm hearing?
That is what you're hearing, because you know a lot of times they don't always say the same thing.
That's
so
right.
You know, so it's a different issue. What's on the ballot is different than raising taxes on that.
Yvette, what would you say about how would you approach this budget issue, and both the revenue side and cost-cutting side?
Well, I mean, my approach to the budget is completely different than the way we've been doing it. I think, you know, at the end of the year, trying to find money off the top, I think is very problematic as a model. And so I support the revisiting of the policy budget that comes from council before the recommendations of the manager. So, you know, at the end of the year, it's very, very challenging. But of course, any council that's elected has to deal with this year. And I think, you know, as you talked about some of the fees and things of that nature, I'm not supportive of a trash tax fee for for a few different reasons. I'm more concerned about the enforcement, getting into a collection situation. How do we make sure that people aren't dumping? We've had challenges with dumping, so there are people who maybe own property somewhere and aren't paying the fee, or they have excess garbage and they're dumping on other people's property. And so I'm really worried about that, in addition to the challenges that Catherine's speaking of, where you're already paying a tax and then you're paying a fee on top of it.
So in terms of what's on the ballot, this charter amendment, are you for or against the charter?
I don't support the charter amendment.
Okay, so vote no on the charter amendment,
Absolutely.
but not supporting a garbage fee. So you two are in the same place.
But I do believe the way that we approach the budget this year should be twofold. I think first, we need to look to the departments to propose recommended cuts. I think it's challenging when we make cuts so political. And you know, that's funny coming from someone who's running for office. I don't know that as a city council person I can tell you that we can cut 3 cops. I think that the administration is in a better position to do that, and I think we start a level down.
But one of the dynamics of that over in recent years has been decisions about the size of the police force specifically have been political decisions.
Right.
The administration of the police department, the former police chief, said, I don't need this extra 100 cops, but that was what council wanted. So in fact, these are political decisions, policy decisions. So I guess the question in my mind is, where do you stand on the side?
Well, you know,
size of the police force.
I spoke with the chief of police. He did a community conversation last night. Absolutely.
Okay. Yes.
And he's already auditing his own department and looking for ways to cut. And I think that, for me, is the better way to approach it. Now, of course, if there are some glaring challenges, council needs to step in and make some adjustments. But we need to at least give the folks on the ground the ability to be able to do that. And what he's seeing is, he's seeing that we have more police officers than we used to, but the beat is light. And so he's looking internally for some of those changes, and I think that's where we should start.
Okay, Catherine, on the question of police officers.
Yeah.
Where are you?
Well, you know, we always talk about laying off police and fire, but the reality is over the last few years through attrition, we've lost about 100 police officers, maybe a little more than that, about 80 firemen and women. And what you have there too is that the fact that we haven't had a recruit class in almost 3 years. So we really are getting less and less cops that are on the streets and working for the city. And that's just happening through the general process. If we really want to look at how are we going to solve the structural imbalance, it's not going to come from just cutting off, you know, police and fire, because we're going to be going back and doing that every year.
So then where are we going to cut it?
Yeah, you know what, we've really got to...
Police and fire make up 2/3 of the total general fund budget of the city. So that only leaves 1/3 over here, and all those departments have been cut in the last 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah, they absolutely have. And that's why we've got to look at how do we do government differently. I'm a huge supporter of looking at ways that we can do shared services with the county and within our city departments. Councilman Young brought up a few weeks ago that we can have a good chance of saving millions of dollars by merging the administrations of MSD, the water district, and then also looking at some of the stormwater. So there are savings that can be made. We've got the Department of Development with the county and the city that talks have started on. And these are, I think, things that could really revolutionize the way that we do our budget in the future and save money.
Just to push back on that, these sorts of mergers and even collaborations across the two ends of Court Street, you know, have been talked about for years, and when it comes down to it, nobody will make a move. Yeah. And we have 49 local governments plus 22 school districts in Hamilton County alone. We can't get anybody. Now we talk about cooperation, but we can't get any. I mean, mergers. This just doesn't. People love to talk about it in campaigns, but it doesn't happen.
All right. Well, and this city council right now that we have, last December when we looked at the budget, they talked about wanting to look at mergers, and we're really going to do this. And you're right, it never happened. But we've got to make it happen, because what's going to happen in the future? We've already lost lots of money from the state of Ohio. That's part of our deficit this year, almost $10 million of it. So we're getting less and less money. That's not going to change.
What about in this sort of area of collaboration, cooperation across governmental lines?
Well, I think we need to start with baby steps, and I think there are certainly some cultural and political implications to saying let's just merge everybody. I mean, I think there's some.
No, I don't think that's going.
I don't see that. I don't see that happening. And so let's start with baby steps. I think, you know, to Catherine's point, sharing services is something that we should look at. But above and beyond that, what services are we providing that we can make available to other municipalities for pay, that can draw revenue for our city. So there are certain things like accounting functions, legal services that we do very well that smaller governments can't do. How about we make those available? And then we're beginning the process of showing other municipalities that we can do these things.
2 years ago, just about 2 years ago, the city, driven by the city manager, there was a proposal out there to move the Waterworks, which is one of Cincinnati's best run operations, serves 50 different jurisdictions, and make it a regional waterworks, which would then have generated somewhere in the neighborhood of 16 to 18 million dollars for the general fund every year. And that was turned down flat. It never got any place. This was a proposal. There was a chance to break through. Do you have any opinion about that?
You know, when that happened, it was looking at that kind of deal that was coming out, it was going to be privatized as well, the waterworks.
No, it was not going to be privatized.
Oh, so
it was a government. It was a special district. It was not private. That's what some opponents wanted to say, but it was not privatized. It was still a government agency.
I'll tell you the biggest pushback that I hear on managed and merged services, and probably with this too, is a lot of people in the city and in the county for that matter, they feel that, well, if we merge these services or we do shared services, our service will be less efficient. Right. It won't be as strong. And I'm here to say that, you know, if we have good contracts and we have good oversight for what we're doing, that's not going to be a problem. And I can totally understand that, you know, thought of, well, you know, if the city's in charge of me out here in Mason or wherever it might be, or Sycamore Township, you know, but we have the ability as a city to look that over and make sure we're providing good service.
Any quick thing on the waterworks?
I think you're right in that the way that it was communicated became very political, and so it was a challenge. And there was an issue, I believe at one point, where the state government was going to get involved to make sure that people understood that this was the only way we could make sure that we were going to be able to continue to provide water services at a lower rate. But it became a political issue, and then all of a sudden it got blown out of the water.
Interesting image.
Pardon the pun.
Last question, because we're basically out of time. Okay. I want to clarify where you stand on issue 48, the streetcar. And this is just what we were dealing with before with the garbage fee. One, do you support the streetcar? That can be a yes or no. And two, do you support issue 48? Because that's broader than just the streetcar. It's what's on the ballot. The Enquirer tried to do this, and the answers got a little fuzzy, so I just want to be real clear. Yvette, let's start with you.
I will be very easy because I am a yes on the streetcar and a no on issue 48.
Okay.
So.
I am a no on the streetcar. We just don't have the money to do this project at this time, this particular way that it's been done.
And where are you on issue 48?
On issue 48, as a typical rule, just like with trash, I think it's very hard when you want to make policy that stretches out years. I don't always think that's the best way to make policy, but at the same time, this may be the only way that we can not have the streetcar done.
So are you yes or no? You have to vote.
I'm voting that it's going to be very hard without passage of issue 48 to not have money that we need at the city to go for the streetcar.
So you are for 48?
At this time, I would say yeah,
okay.
48.
Hard to get answers.
It's hard. It's hard. They worded very tricky.
I don't think the wording is a problem. So thank you very much for being here. If people want to know more about these two candidates, check in on their websites, www.YvetteSimpson.com or www.CatherineSmithMills.com. And we'll be following. We'll see you on election night. Stay tuned. After the break, I'll be joined by one of the council candidates running as an independent.
Man, what's his name? The city councilman, Mahoney. That cabbage patch, you know, he'd be better off shaved.
All right, here we go. Welcome back. We continue our coverage of Cincinnati City Council candidates. Sandra Queen Noble is making her first run for council, but in 2005 she ran in the primary for mayor. She has also run for the mayor of Springfield, Missouri, and run for president 4 times, and she ran for Congress in Washington, D.C. She is the founder of the Heroes and Sheroes Party. Is that right?
That's right. Thank you.
Welcome back to Newsmakers.
Thanks, Ben. Good to see you.
Good to see you. And with City Council, one of the things they are going to face, and we've asked every council candidate about this, is the budget. How does the city deal with the budget?
Oh, you're talking about a $34 million budget. And you add that to the national debt, was like 17 trillion. If I was law enforcement, innate law enforcement, which I am, I hold these people criminally accountable for not acting in the best interest of the public. That's fiscal money that's supposed to be used to balance the budget, but clearly they borrow and know the public can't pay it back. So basically the public is slaves to that money, that deficit.
So what would you do at City Council if you were on City Council to deal with this?
Young man, I don't do colonialism, I just dwell in it. But as a law enforcement officer, like I said, I hold them criminally accountable for not acting in the best interest of the public funds and not balancing the budget every year. You got your expenditures and you got your revenue. It's supposed to balance.
So would there be certain things that you would cut? Would you cut the police department, which is one of the things that's been proposed, to cut the number of officers? Would you cut in the fire division? Would there be other programs that you would cut? Or would you also raise taxes to raise more revenue?
See, that's always the problem. Cutting people's programs or cutting law enforcement, cutting somebody's livelihood. No, those are not the issues. You got to cut out borrowing. Yeah. See, the United States Treasury, they can print money all day. I don't see what the problem is. Pay off the deficit, but you got to deal with City Council, and it's a bad habit of credit and just borrowing money, knowing that the public's got to pay back that money. You got to deal with the politicians, and if I'm elected, they won't be, borrowing a lot of money that they can't pay back. First of all, you have to be heroes and sheroes to understand where I'm coming from. You got status quo public service, and they've been there since 1776. Democrats, Republicans, their offsprings and their inferiors are public nuisances. And they use the public as slave drivers. You're gonna be working, especially if the Senate Bill 5, goes through, you're gonna be slaves for the deficit, never being able to pay off it, and these people are gonna keep on borrowing, and ripping you off. Now, as a hero and shero, you will have the power at voting booths to stop corruption. They're just mere human beings behaving badly. You have to pay back that money, not the politicians. I mean, they're mere human beings as well. So my main focus is the politicians. They're criminal. They need to be dealt with in the courtyard of law. That's one of my other programs.
So let's shift over because I'm aware of time. On the question of the proposed streetcar, where do you stand on the streetcar?
Well, I was while I was practicing my lines, my little sister Diane, she goes to UC, and she said the first time she heard about that is up there at UC. So I think Rayburn and Mallory, you understand, has got that thing planned for the students, and if it's going there to benefit them students up there at the college, I really don't have a problem with it. But City Council is parent to the Metro Transit system, and they raise prices on the bus line at will. And if that trolley is built for the purpose of increasing fees, I got a problem with that.
But in the case of the Metro, besides the fees, the only thing that supports Metro is the earnings tax in the city, which the city does have, City Council does have control of, and as that hasn't kept up with the cost of Metro. So if Metro is an important institution, I mean, how do we support that if it's not through increased fees, tokens in the box?
I ain't sweating that. All I know is nationwide, the people who ride the bus suffer the fees.
Okay.
And if they building, this trolley to benefit the students, I can feel it. But if they doing it for the purpose of increasing fees, then that's another issue. And we'll see the balance of the bus fare versus the trolley fees once this thing get underway.
So there's an issue on the ballot, issue 48, for the whether or not to allow the city to build a trolley. Are you going to vote for that and prevent the city from building the trolley, or are you going to vote against it?
Well, just like I said, my sister, got the information that the trolley is meant for the college students. So that means I got to look at a little more. But my concern is that trolley being paid off the people who ride the city bus. Because from Washington, D.C., that trolley is being built off the backs of those people who ride the bus.
Okay.
They increase the prices for that.
I have less than a minute left. What's the biggest thing you will do?
I'm going to turn everybody into heroes and sheroes. Now, listen up. HERO stands for Helping Equal Rights Opportunity. That's a male. A female is She's Helping Equal Rights Opportunity. This party stands for health, education, well-being, housing, employment, transportation.
I'm out of time.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you for coming again this morning.
No problem.
And thank you for making Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. Have a good week. Join us next week.
All right.
Very good.